third part of a series of 4-part lectures or reminders on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Today inshallah we begin with the night prayer of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وكان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقوم ليصلي حتى ترم قدما فقالت عائشة رضي الله عنها يا رسول الله أتصنع هذا وقد غفر لك ما تقدم من ذنبك وما تأخر. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would pray the night prayer until his feet would become swollen. And Aisha radiallahu anha, she asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, why are you doing this when your previous and future sins have been forgiven? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, أَفَلَا أَكُونُ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا, should I not be a righteous slave? Regarding the night prayer, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَمَا كَانَ صلى الله عليه وسلم يزيد في رمضان ولا في غيره على 11 ركعة يصلي 4 فلا تسأل عن حسنهن وطولهن ثم يصلي 4 فلا تسأل عن حسنهن وطولهن ثم يصلي 3. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would how many rak'ah would he pray in Ramadan? Anyone know? 11. So in this hadith it states that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Ramadan and outside Ramadan he would not pray more than 11 rak'ah, and you should not ask about their beauty because they were very, very beautiful. He would pray 4 and then he would pray another 4 and then he would complete with 3 witr. Of course there is a discussion regarding the number of rak'ah in Taraweeh. Inshallah we talk about this some other time inshallah. Okay. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he prayed the night prayer, it was a very long prayer. And Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he said, صليت مع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ليلة فلم يزل قائما حتى هممت بأمر سوء قيل وما هممت قال هممت أن أقعد وأذر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. The Ibn Mas'ud says that once I prayed the night prayer with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it was so long that I sat down and then I thought about leaving the prayer because he found it very, very difficult to keep up with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, the next hadith is regarding the tatawwu'. Anyone know what the word tatawwu' means? What's tatawwu'? Tatawwu' are the voluntary prayers. As you know, the major classification of prayer is you have the obligatory prayers which are known as the fard, the fara'id. And then you have the optional prayers which are called the sunan or the nawafil. These are all terms. Another term is tatawwu'. So the Shaykh in the book, he mentions a hadith regarding the tatawwu' of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَكَانَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ يُصَلِّي فِي بَيْتِ عَائِشَةَ قَبْلَ الظُّهْرِ 4. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would pray in the house of Aisha 4 rak'ah before dhuhr. How many after dhuhr? 2. ثُمَّ يَخْرُجُ فَيُصَلِّي بِالنَّاسِ ثُمَّ يَدْخُلُ فَيُصَلِّي رَكَعَتَيْنِ. Then he would go out and he would pray in the masjid and then he would come back and he would pray 2. وَكَانَ يُصَلِّي بِالنَّاسِ الْمَغْرِبِ ثُمَّ يَدْخُلُ فَيُصَلِّي رَكَعَتَيْنِ. Then he would pray in the masjid Salat al-Maghrib. Okay, why didn't we mention Salat al-Asr? Okay, because these hadith, as I described the sunan, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Are there any sunnas? Are there any regular sunnas connected to Salat al-Asr?
No. Just preceding it.
Yeah, there is some sunnas. However, it's not from the rawatib, not from the regular sunnas. So in this hadith is mentioned regular sunnas before dhuhr and after dhuhr, and also after maghrib. ويصلي بالناس العشاء ويدخل بيت عائشة رضي الله عنها يصلي ركعتين. And then he would pray Isha, and how many would he pray in the house of Aisha after Isha? He would pray 2. وكان إذا طلع الفجر صلى ركعتين. And before Salat al-Fajr, how many would he pray before Salat al-Fajr? 2. He would pray 2. So if you add all of them together, you get either 10 or you get 10, or you could get 12 if you prayed. Yeah, please, brother, just let me speak. Okay, and then there's the hadith. كان صلى الله عليه وسلم يصلي قبل العصر 4 يفصل بين كل ركعتين بالتسليم. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would pray Asr. This is the hadith regarding the tatawwu' before Asr. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would pray 2 and he would pray 2. وكان صلى الله عليه وسلم يصلي الضحى. When is Salat al-Duha? Anyone know Salat al-Duha? Yeah. Yeah.
The time period just before when it's at the highest point.
Yeah.
Midday. So any point between sort of Fajr and Zawal time, am I right?
Yeah, basically after the sun has risen the height of a spear, say 15 to 20 minutes after sunrise, until about 10 minutes before Dhuhr. This is the window for Salat al-Duha. The Salat al-Duha, how many rak'ah? I want different brothers, please, interacting. How many rak'ah for Salat al-Duha? Okay, you can pray 2, 4, 6 or 8. According to the Hanbali madhab, the upper limit for Salat al-Duha is 8. Some of the ulama say there is no upper limit. Allahu A'lam. Then we come to the prayer of the Prophet ﷺ at home. In the preceding hadith we saw that the Prophet ﷺ, where did he pray sunnah? In the house. The best place to pray your sunnah is at home. This is the best place to pray sunnah, and the hadith it explains that the Prophet ﷺ prayed all his sunnah at home. There's no harm in praying in the masjid, especially if you believe that when you go home you feel lazy and you won't pray the sunnah. So there's no harm in praying in the masjid. However, it's preferable to pray the sunnah at home. As for the sadaqah of the Prophet ﷺ, كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أجود الناس وأجود ما يكون في رمضان حين يلقاه جبريل صلى عليه السلام. The Prophet ﷺ was the most generous person and was the most generous in Ramadan when he met Jibreel alayhi salam. They say that when he met Jibreel to revise the Quran, he was very, very happy to meet Jibreel, so he made shukr by giving sadaqah. And the Prophet ﷺ would say, لو كان لي مثل أحد ذهبا ما يسرني أن لا يمر علي ثلاث وعندي منه شيء إلا شيء أرشده للدين. The Prophet ﷺ said that even if I had as much gold as Uhud, you know what Uhud is? Okay, a mountain. It's a mountain in Medina. Even if I had that much gold, I wouldn't want to let 3 days pass except that I had given this gold in sadaqah. And the only reason I would hold back money is to pay off debts. And many people they accepted Islam because Prophet ﷺ was so generous. And وَسَأَلَ رَجُلٌ النَّبِيَّ صلى الله عليه وسلم غَنَمًا بَيْنَ جَبَلَيْنِ. That one person he asked the Prophet ﷺ to give him all the sheep between two mountains in a valley. And then he gave it to him to soften his heart so he would accept Islam. So the man he went to his people and said, أي قومي أسلموا. Oh my people, accept Islam. فوالله إن محمدا لا يعطي عطاء ما يخاف الفقر. Accept Islam as Muhammad, he will give you, and it's as though he's somebody who does not fear poverty. So we see the generosity of the Prophet ﷺ. Then we come to the fasting of the Prophet ﷺ. ما صام رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم شهرا كاملا قط غير رمضان. The Prophet ﷺ, he only fasted one complete month. Anyone know a complete month he fasted? Okay, I prefer different brothers, please. Ramadan. Okay, Ramadan. وكان يصوم إذا صام حتى يقول القائل لا والله لا يفطر ويفطر إذا أفطر حتى يقول القائل لا والله لا يصوم. That he would fast so many voluntary fasts until the people thought he was always fasting. And then at other periods he would not fast until the people thought that he didn't observe voluntary fasts. So the practice of the Prophet ﷺ was variable. Which is the month the Prophet ﷺ fasted the most outside Ramadan? Sha'ban. Sha'ban is the month before Ramadan. لم يكن صلى الله عليه وسلم في الشهر من السنة أكثر صياما منه في شعبان. He used to fast the most in Sha'ban. Also regarding the voluntary fasting, وكان صلى الله عليه وسلم يصوم من كل شهر ثلاثة أيام. That he would fast 3 days in every month. وكان يتحرى صوم الاثنين والخميس. And he used to try to fast every Monday and every Thursday. Mondays and Thursdays. And he used to explain the reason why he wanted to fast Mondays and Thursdays, and said تعرض الأعمال يوم الاثنين والخميس فأحب أن يعرض عملي وأنا صائم. He said that the actions are shown or raised to Allah on Mondays and Thursdays, and I love that my actions are displayed to Allah in the condition that I am fasting.
Sorry, the white days start Thursday.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, the white days for this month they start on Thursday. Jazakallahu khairan. وكان صلى الله عليه وسلم يصوم يوم عاشوراء. And he used to fast the day of Ashura, which is the 10th day of Muharram. فلما قدم المدينة صامه صامه وأمر بصيامه فلما فرض رمضان ترك يوم عاشوراء فمن شاء صامه ومن شاء تركه. Prophet ﷺ, when he went to Medina, he found the Jews fasting, and he said that we have more right to Musa alayhi salam than you, and he commanded the Muslims to fast. And then when Ramadan became an obligation, then the fasting of Ashura, it became a sunnah. So fasting on Ashura is recommended, however it's not an obligation. The only obligatory fast is in Ramadan. And also the Prophet ﷺ, he used to say, وَصِيَامُ يَوْمِ عَاشُورَ أَحْتَسِبُ اللَّهِ أَنْ يُكَفِّرَ السَّنَةِ الَّتِي قَبْلَهُ. And as for the fasting of the 10th day of Muharram, I hope that Allah will forgive as a result of it 1 year of sins. What kind of sins? Minor sins. And the Prophet ﷺ used to say, the أفضل الصيام بعد رمضان شهر الله المحرم وأفضل الصلاة بعد الفريضة صلاة الليل. He said that the best fasting after Ramadan is the fasting of the month of Muharram. And the best prayer after the obligatory prayer is the night prayer. Some of the scholars, they discussed that why is it that the Prophet ﷺ would fast the most in Sha'ban, even though in another hadith he's saying that the best fasting after Ramadan is in the month of Muharram. So this it appears to be apparently contradictory. And one explanation is that the Prophet ﷺ was only informed about the excellence of Muharram towards the end of his life. So most of his life he had spent fasting most of Sha'ban. However, he only became aware of the excellence of the fasting of Muharram towards the end of his life. Another possible reason is that in Sha'ban, which is the month before Ramadan, the Prophet ﷺ would be making up fasts which he may have missed due to illness or due to traveling. For this reason, it would appear that the Prophet ﷺ fasted more in Sha'ban than in Muharram. As a general rule, fasting in Muharram is more virtuous than fasting in Sha'ban. However, the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ was to fast more in Sha'ban. Anyway, inshallah, matters a flexible one. Then we come to how the Prophet ﷺ read the Quran. كانت قراءة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم مدّا. The Prophet ﷺ would read madda, meaning that he would read the ayat with separations. So he would stop. He wouldn't just read continuously. Rather, he would stop after every ayah or after every fasl, after every stopping point. And also it says, كان صلى الله عليه وسلم يقطع قراءته آية آية. He used to read verse by verse. Also we can say regarding the Prophet ﷺ that sometimes he would read loudly and other times he would read quietly. وكانت قراءة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم على قدر ما يسمعه من في الحجرة وهو في البيت. The people, they could hear him from outside his house. So if he was in the house of Aisha radiallahu anha, the people could hear him reciting the Quran outside. Then we come to the weeping of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Prophet ﷺ, famously, he asked Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu to read the Quran, and he said, "Iqra alayya al-Quran," that read the Quran to me. And Ibn Mas'ud, he was surprised to hear this, and he said, "Ya Rasulullah, aqra'u alayk wa alayka unzil." How can I read to you? And the Quran was revealed to you. And he said, "Inni ashtahi an asma'ahu min ghayri." I like to hear it from other people. And this is true, that the Quran is an amazing book that it has a different effect on you depending on who recites. So sometimes maybe an ayah you hear from one reciter, and then when you hear from another reciter, it's as though you've never heard this ayah before. So the Quran is a book, لا تنقضي عجائبه, that its wonderful nature, it doesn't cease.
When you used to read quiet and loud, was that in Sunnah and Nafil or Farz?
This is a good point. Yeah, with regards to reading in the Fard, then of course we have the Salawat al-Sirriya al-Jahriya when you pray with the Imam. As for praying at home by yourself, then this is more of a flexible issue. It's better to follow the Sunnah. However, if from time to time somebody read loudly, quietly, it'd be okay. As for Sunnah, praying loudly and quietly in Sunnah or in Nafal, then you should do that which is better for your heart. So if your concentration is better if you read loudly, in the Sunnah you can read loudly, and you can read quietly as well. So the Prophet ﷺ, he would weep, and when Abdullah ibn Mas'ud read the Quran to him, he wept when he read the ayah, فَكَيْفَ إِذَا جِئْنَا مِنْ كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ بِشَهِيدٍ وَجِئْنَا بِكَ عَلَى هَؤُلَاءِ شَهِيدًا. How will it be when we come with a witness from every nation, and we will come with you as a witness over this nation. So he wept. Other occasion the Prophet ﷺ wept was when his daughter died. The Prophet ﷺ, his eyes flooded with tears. Another occasion, Ibrahim. Who was Ibrahim in this situation? His son, the son of the Prophet ﷺ. He wept at this point as well, and there are other occasions as well. So it's not feminine to weep. Some people may think that it's like a woman. You should be strong. However, this is also from manliness, that you weep because of the mercy that Allah has placed in your heart. As for the humility of the Prophet ﷺ, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يأنف أن يمشي مع الأرملة والمسكين فيقضي له الحاجة. The Prophet ﷺ, he would walk with the orphan and the widow and tend to their needs. وكان صلى الله عليه وسلم بشرا من البشر يفلي ثوبه ويحلب شاته ويخدم نفسه. The Prophet ﷺ would repair his own clothes and milk his sheep and serve himself. So, so sometimes he would do self-service. So this is also from the humility of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ didn't used to like people to stand when he entered. So if he entered and the people were sitting, they would remain seated. Why? Because he would dislike that they stood up. Why did he dislike that they stood up?
Was it anything to do with like the people of other traditions, like let's say a king walking or something, and
it's like
again humility.
Yeah, humility. Yeah. I mean, in our culture or in our cultures, we stand up for the guest, correct? Yeah. Like if your father walked in, you might stand up, correct? Or so they say that if it's part of the urf, if it's part of the culture, then inshallah it's a flexible matter. Also there are the hadith, like Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا تطروني كما ترت النصارى ابن مريم إنما أنا عبد فقول عبد الله ورسوله. Don't exaggerate in my praise as the Jews and Christians they exaggerated. And I am a slave of Allah and His messenger. Okay, right. Then we come to how the Prophet ﷺ dealt with people, and كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أحسن الناس. This is a nice hadith. Prophet ﷺ, he was the best of people. So it summarizes everything. And ما سئل صلى الله عليه وسلم شيئا قط فقال لا. And he was never asked anything that he said no to. So he would always be giving. وكان يقبل الهدية ويثيب عليها. He would accept gifts from people and he would repay the gift. So if somebody gives you a gift, then it's sunnah for you to gift that person as well. ولم يكن فاحشا ولا متفحشا. That he wasn't foul-mouthed. He wasn't somebody who swore or used bad language. And he used to say, إن من خياركم أحسنكم أخلاقا. The best of you are the ones with the best manners. And ما ضرب صلى الله عليه وسلم شيئا قط بيده ولا امرأة ولا خادما إلا أن يجاهد في سبيل الله. The Prophet ﷺ never struck a woman, nor did he strike a servant, even though he had authority over them. And the only time he struck somebody was in jihad fi sabilillah. So he was very gentle with the women and also even with the servants. Okay. And Anas radiallahu anhu, he says, خدمت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم 10 سنين والله ما قال لي أفا قط ولا قال لي لشيء لما فعلت كذا ولا هلا فعلت كذا. This is a very good hadith. Anas radiallahu anhu, he says, I served the Prophet for 10 years. He never ever said to me, uff, or why did you do this or why didn't you do that? So there was no blame culture. He was very, very easygoing with Anas radiallahu anhu. Then we come to the hijama. You know what hijama is? Cupping. And the Prophet he would cup and he would say, Inna afdala ma tadawaytum bihi hijama. He said the best thing you can treat yourself with is hijama, bloodletting. And Prophet said, Man ihtajama li 17 wa 19 wa 21 kana shifaan min kulli da. Prophet said that these are sunnah days for cupping. These are sunnah days, the 17th, the 19th, and the 21st days. So try to, if you do cupping, then there are sunnah days. The Prophet he had more than one name. Anyone know a name of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Somebody else. Okay, I'd like to hear from different brothers. Anyone know a name other than Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Yeah, other brothers. Yeah, go on. Sorry? Mustafa. Okay, the chosen one. Yeah. Anyone know any other name? Ahmad. Okay, Ahmad. This is. Okay, Ahmad. Okay, the other name. He said, "Ana Muhammad wa ana Ahmad wa ana al-Mahi alladhi yumha bihi al-kufr." I am the Mahi. Mahi is like the one who wipes away kufr. And al-Hashir alladhi yuhsharu an-nasu ala aqibi. I am the one who gathers the people, and the people that will be resurrected after me. Wa ana al-Aqib. And I am the last one, meaning there will be no prophet after me. Okay.
Abu Qasim?
Abu al-Qasim is kunya. It's not regarded as a name, Abu al-Qasim. Because his son's name was Qasim, and at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, nobody else was allowed to take the kunya Abu al-Qasim. However, now, inshallah, it's a flexible matter. We come to the age of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, how old was he? Different brothers, please. How old was he when he received prophethood?
40.
Okay, 40. Okay, how long did he spend in Mecca? Okay, so how many years? How many years in Mecca? More.
13.
13. He spent 13 years in Mecca. This is proof that the Prophet ﷺ called to Tawheed for 13 years, because the ahkam, the rulings, there were few in the Makki phase. How many years did he spend in Medina? No, not 11. 10. Okay, so it's 40 at 13 at 10 gives you 63. So the Prophet ﷺ was 63 when he passed away, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then the Shaykh, he quotes many hadith regarding the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm going to very quickly summarize. The Prophet ﷺ, at the time of Fajr, he came, and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he was leading the people in prayer, and he was in the hujra, or the room of Aisha radiallahu anha, and he looked and he saw the people praying behind Abu Bakr, and he smiled, and this is like the last smile. And Abu Bakr, he started to move backwards, thinking that the Prophet ﷺ was better. However, the Prophet ﷺ indicated to him to complete leading the prayer. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he said to Aisha radiallahu anha that I'm finding the pain from food I ate in Khaybar. And the Prophet ﷺ had been poisoned in Khaybar. Poisoned meat, he'd been fed poisoned meat. He said, I'm feeling this pain because of this poisoned meat. And then he called Fatima radiallahu anha, and he whispered in her ear. I'm sure you all know this hadith. The first time he whispered, she wept, because he said that I think I will not live any longer. And second time, she laughed. And you know the reason why she laughed when she heard the second secret. Because she is the first one that will die after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so then when he was on his deathbed, then he advised the people, وَأَوْصَى صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم الْمُسْلِمِينَ بِالْمُحَافَظَةِ عَلَى الصَّلَاةِ, and he advised them to keep up with their prayers. So the namaz, he advised them, and also وَمَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ, and what your right hand possesses. Some of the ulama, they said it's in reference to the zakat, that what your right hand possesses is zakat. Others, they said it's in reference to the slave girls, that treat the slave girls well. And then Abdul Rahman ibn Abi Bakr, who was the brother of Aisha radiallahu anha, he came in with a miswak, and the Prophet ﷺ saw the miswak, and then Aisha, she took the miswak and softened the miswak in her mouth, and then the Prophet ﷺ, he brushed his teeth, and he would be going in and out of consciousness, and he would have a bowl of water, and he was wiping his face and continuously saying, La ilaha illallah, inna lil mawti sakarat, that death, it has pain. And he said, Allahumma ghfirli warhamni, Ya Allah have mercy on me, forgive me, walhiqni bil rafiq, and make me join the companions, Allahumma fil rafiqil a'la, Ya Allah, take me to the best company. Some of the ulama, they say this is in reference to the angels. Take me to the companionship of the angels. فَمَا زَالَ يُكَرِّرُهَا حَتَّى قُبِض. And he kept saying these phrases, إِلَى رَفِقِ الْأَعْلَى, until he died. And he was pointing with his hand, and they knew that he had died. وَمَالَتْ يَدُهُ وَرَأْسُهُ. And then his hand became limp, as did his head. And his head was on the chest of Aisha radiallahu anha, between her chin and her chest. This again is evidence of the great station of Aisha radiallahu anha, that she had the favor of the Prophet ﷺ dying, and her saliva mixed with the saliva of the Prophet ﷺ during the cleaning of the teeth. And then when he died, Umar radiallahu anhu couldn't believe it, and he threatened the people, if anyone says that Muhammad has died, then I will cut off his hands and his feet. And then Abu Bakr, who lived on the outskirts of Medina, he arrived, and then he took control of the situation, and he read, he went to the Prophet ﷺ, kissed him on his head, and he said various things, and from the things he said is ayah from the Quran, وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ الرُّسُلُ. Now Muhammad is none other than a messenger, and other messengers have passed before him. And when Umar heard this ayah, then he dropped and he realized that the Prophet ﷺ had actually died. And they say that all the Sahaba, every single one of them, they started reciting these ayat from the Quran. It's as though they had never heard these ayat ever before. And then when it came to the washing of the Prophet ﷺ, his body, they were undecided whether they should strip his body just like we do in a normal janazah, or whether they should wash on top of the clothes. And then they all felt drowsy, and they heard a voice in the corner of the room saying, wash him from on top of his clothes. So again, this is like a unique situation where he is washed from on top of his clothes. And then they prayed the janazah. Does anyone know who the imam was in the janazah of the Prophet ﷺ? This is a trick question. Yeah. Yeah, they prayed individually. They prayed individually. So there was no imam. There was no imam in the janazah. Rather, they came in groups and they prayed. And Allah knows best why this was, but this is the way the janazah was prayed. It is prayed as individuals, not in jama'ah. Okay, I think then they decided to bury him, and they didn't know what to do. Then Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he said that he heard a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said that whenever a prophet dies, he is buried where he died. So he died in the house of Aisha. He didn't die in the masjid. Nowadays people, they use this as evidence that it's okay to bury a holy man in a masjid. It's not okay. It's not permissible to bury in a masjid. A person should be buried in a graveyard, and the prophets, they were an exception. They were buried where they died, and the Prophet ﷺ was buried. And then the masjid, it kind of extended, and it surrounded the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, although it was never intended to be this way. They delayed the burial of the Prophet ﷺ because there was something very, very important to do before the burial. Anyone know what is more important? There's something more important than the burial. Even though we know as Muslims that you're supposed to bury quickly. However, there was something important they had to do. Yeah, she was the Khalifa. She was the Khalifa. So they had to unite upon the Khalifa, who of course was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. However, he had to be formalized as the Khalifa before the burial took place, because the unity of the Muslims, is something very, very important, and it is even more important than the burial. Final hadith is seeing the Prophet ﷺ in a dream. Is this something possible? Is it possible you see the Prophet ﷺ in a dream? Yeah, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man ra'ani fil manam faqad ra'ani fa inna ash-shaytan la yatamathalu fi surati." That whoever saw me in a dream, then indeed he saw me, as the shaitan is unable to take my form. As for whether it was the Prophet ﷺ or not, then you would only know from the description of the Prophet ﷺ, which is found in books like this, which is called the Shama'il. This book is kind of a type of book which is called the Shama'il, which collects together the descriptions of the Prophet ﷺ. And one man, he came to Ibn Abbas and said that he had seen the Prophet ﷺ. And Ibn Abbas said to him, that can you just describe him? And he described him and said, he's a man of medium build. He's somebody who is neither dark in complexion nor white in complexion. He has a beautiful smile. He has eyes which have kuhul, very, very bright eyes. He has a circular face, and his beard, he fills his chest. And then Ibn Abbas said that even if he had been alive, you couldn't have described him better than this. So if someone saw the Prophet ﷺ like this, then he saw him. However, if he received a statement like you don't have to pray anymore, or he received specific revelation to himself, then he didn't see the Prophet ﷺ. Who did he see? He saw the shaitan. He saw the shaitan. So you can't receive a revelation or something like this, but it's possible that there are people who they say they saw the Prophet ﷺ and then Like Imam Bukhari, for example. Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah ta'ala, he saw himself defending the Prophet ﷺ with a fan and fanning away flies. So it's possible that somebody sees the Prophet ﷺ. However, if they start telling you strange stories, then it probably wasn't the Prophet ﷺ.